Hi there! It is time to harvest some of the garlic. Now this is actually a little bit early compared to typical lore. In my area, most areas, garlic would typically not be harvested until closer to July 4th. However, it is only a week or two until the 4th of July, so we are close, and we've had some weird weather this year. So let me show you how you can tell when it's time to harvest and when you should wait a little bit. So I have several different varieties. The ones that we're going to harvest today are I think all of the hard necks. There might be a soft neck that we might wait on. We'll see once we get back to that part of the bed. But there is Spanish Roja, Northern White, Music, and Amish Rocambole. And I know you probably can't tell the difference on the video. And then along the back is a soft-necked variety, which I can't remember right now, but we'll look at the tag when we get back there. Most, if not all of this is ready, and here's how you can tell. When you look at the stalks, they are starting to get kind of sad looking. There is at least 1, 2, 3 leaves coming up from the bottom that are dead and completely shriveled up. And so that is your sign that you could harvest. Now, I could possibly wait a little bit longer, but it's going to rain quite a bit today and tomorrow. And I really, the ultimate goal would be if you can harvest when things are fairly dry. So another tip that a lot of people give is if you can always tell when it's getting close, stop watering, let the soil dry out a bit, and that helps make it a little easier to get the garlic out, possibly, but more importantly, it gets it out without a lot of heavy, wet mud, because we're going to be very careful when we first harvest. The papers around the garlic bulbs are going to still be very delicate. They're not going to have dried yet very much. So what we're going to do is once we get this out, we're going to put them in trays over here to take in the house, and then I'm going to lay them out on some metal racks in a place where they can just hang out, and this green that's still in the stems can fully draw down into the bulb, and this will get completely dried out. When that happens, the papers will have gotten nice and papery and set to be able to make the garlic bulbs be able to store for hopefully all the way through into next summer. So another thing that you want to do when you're getting ready to harvest, you do not usually want to just pull them up. The garlic bulb actually grows fairly deep into the ground, and if you just pull, yes, you will get it, but you are also very likely to damage some of the papers on the garlic bulb. So what you want to do is take a trowel, get a couple inches away from the base of the garlic, and then loosen. And you can see here my trowel is going in all the way up to the top of the scoop, pardon me, and it's still just barely clearing where the bulb is. So now that it's moving, now I can gently pull on this. You can see there is some dirt that's attached because down deep there it's still wet. So I'm going to just gently shake it to get as much of that wet dirt off as I can. I'm not going to worry too much about getting all of it. I might gently check it with my thumb to see if I can get a little bit more to come off. And I can. So I'm just being very, very gentle. But that's about as much as I'm going to do, because then this is going to go in the tray. Then it'll go on the racks where it can have lots of airflow. I'll put a fan on it. And then in a few weeks, it will be ready to snip those roots off, snip the stalk off, and go into storage. And that's pretty much it for how you know when to harvest and what to do once you harvest. I'll show you a couple more, but let me also show you, I have some other garlic over here that is not quite ready, just to see the difference. You can see here, some of the leaves are starting to turn yellow, but and we do have a couple here that have yellowed up and gotten crispy, but this one has still got a lot of green in it, and so do most of the rest of the plants of this variety over here. In fact, some of them only have maybe one leaf that has kind of crisped up. So these probably still have at least another week. These are going to be closer to the 4th of July. But you can see they are starting to get close. So this is a bed where I will probably not give it any supplemental water. We're going to have rain. That's as much water as it's going to get to hopefully get that soil to dry out, so that in a week or two, when I go to harvest these, hopefully it won't be too terribly wet and muddy. So let's get a few more. These are the Spanish Roja. Now this variety is supposed to be and will be a little bit smaller than some of the others. Music has done really well for me and usually gives me pretty good sized garlic bulbs. The Spanish Roja I went ahead and grew because it said that it had a little bit more interesting taste and flavor, and you can see these garlic bulbs are still rather large. So I'm going to just get some of this dirt and mud off of where the roots are, because, pardon the sniffles, I really don't want to put these in the house where they're going to be hanging out with tons and tons of wet mud. That's a great place for insects and worms and things, and just moisture in general. I don't want any of these rotting after we've worked so hard since last fall to grow them. But that's a lot better. Okay, so you can see pretty good sized. That's the Spanish Roja. I'll show you what some of the other ones look like once I get them harvested. Be back in a little bit. All right, this entire bed has been harvested. I will show you the garlic in just a second. You can see here I have some marigolds that I had planted around the edge. That I believe is some lemon balm. I have a few onions here. These onions are not nearly as big as what they should be this time of year. They should be like that or bigger. So we'll see if getting the garlic out helps these guys start to beef up. If not, well, then I have some green onion tops to add to the green onions that I also planted. Over here, we have two varieties. I don't remember if I said this in the earlier part. Right here is chestnut red. That is a hardneck. In the middle is something called Nutco Rose. That is a soft neck. And then on the other side there is some more chestnut red. And looking at all of these, they still need at least a week. But they will be coming out no later than 2 weeks, because then I will be out of town for a couple weeks, and they definitely cannot go another month. So in the next week or two, all of this will come out. Just to give you a look, you can see here, these are the three bigger varieties of hardneck garlic. I can't remember which. I think this is the Amish Rocambole. It does pretty well. This is the Music, and then this is the Northern White, I think it was called. This is a soft neck called Early Italian, and this was the Spanish Roja. So that's going to be a smaller one. You can see there's only about 5 bulbs there. All of this garlic, all of this and all of this came from garlic that I grew last year. So I did not buy any seed garlic this year. I challenged myself to only grow from what I had grown the previous year. And as you can see, I think it did pretty well. There are definitely some bulbs that are smaller in every variety. Like that's not a super large bulb, but then there's also several that are quite substantial size. Definitely a bulb worth being proud of. So some varieties like the Music and the Amish Rocambole tend to do generally better and produce bigger bulbs. The chestnut red in the past has also, so we'll see how those look once we dig them up. Some of these are actually bigger than I was expecting based on the size of the stalks. Usually that's a pretty good indication of the size of the bulb, but they don't look too bad. Something else to point out with the soft neck. So the main difference obviously is the neck. These do not produce escape. They are much more flexible. stalk, especially once they dry. But one of the bigger also differences between a soft neck usually and a hard neck is it will produce more cloves, but they will tend to be smaller per bulb. So you'll get more cloves in a bulb, but they tend to be a little bit smaller. And I don't know if you can see, like there, some of these are actually pretty good size. But on a hard neck variety, you will not get as many bulbs, but they tend to, or sorry, as many cloves, but they tend to be a much larger clove. You can see here that they just kind of go around in a circle, whereas on a soft neck, sometimes they'll like kind of stack on top of each other. So anyways, there we have it. Ooh, the humidity has got me. Let me not include my hair in the let me not include the hair in the video. It's quite, ugh. Anyways, thanks for joining me here today in Aunt Susan's garden. Garlic harvest, part 1. P.S. I thought I should probably show you what it looks like here, having them all laid out to cure. So also I'm videoing this so that I remember what I've got where, because I don't have enough tags for every shelf. So these 2 shelves here are the Amish rocambole. Up here is the Spanish Roja and early Italian soft. These are probably a little closer than they need to be, so I'm going to check on those in a couple days. I have enough space that I could move some of those to another shelf, but I wanted to see how much of a difference it makes having them a little more spread apart. The main thing is that you don't want them to be touching each other, especially anywhere that there is still a little bit of that soil, because it is kind of damp. We want to get that to be as dry as possible, as fast as possible, to prevent any mold or bacteria growth. And then here we have 2 shelves with the Northern White and 2 shelves with the music. So everything is spread apart. It has lots of room to dry. I'm going to be getting a fan that will just kind of oscillate back and forth and help keep the air moving. So that's what it looks like when it's sitting ready and working on curing.